world economy. It was the first game to have avatars, the first world to have customizable avatars. Every avatar got a place where they could live, and the game world itself was sprawling, 3,000 plus rooms. And so what's really cool about Habitat is that all these first kind of happened, but like, you know, more or less it was something that just kind of got like relegated to history for a long time.
Yeah, stuff after what happened to Atari.
Oh yeah. Atari was interesting because, like, you know, when Jack Tramiel left Commodore, he went over to Atari and basically tried to push for the Atari ST, and you know that was successful for a while, all the way up until the mid '90s when you know the company kind of ran out of steam. Yeah, now what the hell are they doing? Like the Atari like VCS whatever. It looks like the next iteration of the Oya.
That's when like Sierra and LucasArts is still like on business.
Yeah, man, it's been really great to see like the rejuvenation of the adventure genre, because the technology that was developed in Habitat led directly to the creation of the SCUM system that Lucasfilm and LucasArts would later go on to use to build games like Maniac Mansion and Monkey Island series, The Dig. And so this game's just wild, man. If you ever want to like get a true 1980s experience, Neohabitat.org is our site. And we can usually get started on a modern machine in under 5 minutes. We have installers for every platform under the sun. And I don't know, it's just really fun to explore this place. In fact, there's somebody random who just showed up in the world. That might be Randy, but I'm not quite sure. Let's go say hello. In fact, let's get their attention by taking off our head.
Whoever get a chance to say it. That's a great idea to say it.
I think this joystick may be a little bit janky. Let me fix that. Looks like in the
So you weren't expecting the company to last as long, that outlasted not only I forgot Midway and Acclaim, but Atari as well, and at Sierra's like, wow, this has been
like, you played those new King's Quest games that they've been coming out with? I've got to say, they're surprisingly good.
The only reason is Chip and I have copies.
I mean, I've been keeping tabs. It's not like I haven't. It's like lack of. There's a lot of games coming out these days.
I'm not worried about it too.
So you're seeing our login workflow here now that we swapped out the joystick. This joystick should definitely be a lot more reliable.
Oh wait, Lucasfilm's 1987?
1987, man.
That's a long time.
Yeah, dude. Like, everybody thought this game was as good as today, but, you know, over the past 3 years, we brought the whole team back. Top to bottom, soup to nuts.
Yeah, Disney bought LucasArts for exorbitant $1 billion, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna make money off of Star Wars.
Right? And I think they've easily recouped that investment. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they something's. Yeah, I think LucasArts was done developing games. Now because all the EA's Battlefield 2 was drama.
Yeah.
it was like, wow.
They somehow managed to piss off the entire internet with that one.
Even Disney was like, you need to take off that microtransactions and loot boxes away. It's very bad business.
I know what you're talking about.
It's like
Lucasfilm, Disney.
There's
like only one thing you could do.
It's like,
what do you mean I can't play Darth Vader?
All right, now we can put our.
I would tolerate cosmetic ones. That I can barely tolerate cosmetic versions. It's like if Sierra was still around. Oh dear.
I was demonstrating the machine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the old sex change machine.
Yes. I was thinking 1980s. We didn't care what your gender you're having. Gender fluidity was built in.
Nolan Bushnell was having parties with all the ladies and with all the Atari folks. Now they're saying, oh, there's a Me Too movement. We gotta take him off the awards. And I'm like, everyone was like, what? Wait, it was public knowledge. and then the one person was like, yeah, I'm sorry they didn't do it.
You ever hear of it?
That game. What a good game, man.
Oh, you're in trust after.
It is on like PC, old school PCs, I presume.
This is a
Yeah, you were one of the two guys. Right?
Oh.
This game
I worked with Eric Goldlander and Ron Gilbert, and they learned from you guys.
We're actually just about to use the gender changer right now.
It's
kind of getting like the entire really unique thing going on right now.
Oh, that. I think nowadays, if any of the game developers try doing this, it'll be like a nightmare. It'll be like the whole what was it, the change.org petition outrage movement. They're like, take this game down. This game is offensive. You know?
I didn't work for them. I was adjacent to them.
This is the first game ever have customizable avatars. And so on the whole, like, you can really do a lot of interesting
I rewrote your
stuff
memory
with
manager.
avatars.
I don't know if you wrote it or
Skin color.
I know.
change,
I did the one on when I came on
and
back
so
to Crash.
pretty much a lot of folks
like
who come in and really get into Habitat, they do all sorts of crazy stuff with their avatars.
Yeah.
So I remember.
Yeah. So I rewrote that. Actually. That's what I want to think back.
Stuff like this would appear on Toys R Us, which unfortunately Toys R Us is on a chopping block. But KB Toys is coming back. This is unusual. They do pop out and I mean the Commodore 64 stuff do pop up in places like
run on original Commodore if you feel like it.
Yeah.
So what were you on?
That stuff really awesome.
You had your character tiles.
That's
No, that's what I'm saying.
Really?
This is really 3D rendered.
I like the writing
So what
fonts
is it made up of then?
of the Commodore 64 emulators.
Oh, you had 3D. You had depth, right?
This is about, what was it, digital preservation for the future generations.
Parallax, right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It is like one of the most craziest episodes where all those big AAA companies were panicking. Oh my God, everything is going digital. Let's milk them up as much as possible instead of doing this. Preservations? Yeah.
It's not the scaling
Cheers, man. I mean, like this.
So then you did it in passes.
This game had a lot of firsts and
layer passes.
it's really a.
So when you're looking at cell,
So each of these objects has a object position. Like let's say the center. I think it's center.
It's really excited.
Those are sorted. X, Z,
want to kind of show folks where it all
Y,
started.
and X. No idea.
Yeah. I am curious, where'd you get this thing?
This right here?
Yeah.
So this was donated by a fellow named Greg. This is basically a guide that teaches you how to program the turbo graphics.
AKA PC engines in Japan.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So
Effectively, they
draw
give you like
here,
something
draw
that
this
would run on like a modern platform that you can compile down the binaries and you can run on turbo graphics.
Yeah, the thing is about stuff like this, it will pop out in places in Asia, but you'll barely hear anything outside of Asia.
It's true, man. So yeah, this thing right here is absolutely wild. It's it's basically like a manga that teaches you like how to code an assembly. It blows my mind. It's such a cool idea.
It was such a cool idea, but we're looking at another part that was related to video games. It's like, well, it's before PlayStation 1. Everybody was saying, all these video games and all those manga animes are for little kids.
Right? Little do you know, those little kids went on to like make like serious bank.
What was the future this company is going to be if at the digital age chapter? Were you expecting any any changes in the future?
Well, I expect there to be a much more level playing field for people who want to do things in games that aren't strictly shooting. I think we're entering like a world where, like for instance, that game right there, everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely one of the most mind-blowing games you'll play all year if you've never played it before. And we have platforms and lots of people who are using the form of video games to tell more complex stories, and say like Gears of War, for instance, which is like shoot a lot of things. Keep shooting things. It's all right. Keep shooting. Maybe get behind some cover, but shoot. And like we now are entering this era where like we have platforms like the Nintendo Switch. Platforms like Steam Greenlight that allow people who might not have the resources of a AAA game developer to make really powerful and interesting video game experiences. So I've got a lot of hope for the future, man.
Yeah.
Looking at this whole situation they got over here with this indie zone.
Yeah.
People doing some crazy shit, man.
It all started with this Atari, this company with Lowell & Bushnell, and you've been around for as long as the company started, right?
Well, what's fascinating is like, in those days, like, the indie games were really all that there really were. There really weren't like really big games creators. Like EA kind of started out as a Commodore game producer for the longest time.
Wow.
Yeah. What's also interesting about EA might be different from like where they are today. Like they treated all their developers like rock stars. If you worked for EA, you had an extremely high quality of life.
Yeah, the irony EA was doing exactly what would Atari and Sierra be doing if they're still in business. In a nastier type of way, kind of.
I really wish like Sierra in particular was still around. Like, there's a new King's Quest game, which is actually pretty good, but it wasn't made by Sierra. It has like the Sierra kind of name badge on it. And Ken and Roberta Williams, they're just like chilling.
Yeah.
They got the nice like apron off somewhere in California woods, and they're just hanging, having a good time.
Yeah, folks like you, we're not expecting to see how long the industry has been developed as far as you remembered. Yeah. You said this company was developed just to make fun games.
This company?
Yeah, company.
So the company we got here is actually so this was made by Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm Games went on to become LucasArts.
Yeah.
And they make all these adventure games. I haven't really been in the industry for. I wouldn't even say I'm in the industry right now. I've mostly just been in social media. I've been helping to keep like big sites like Twitter and Tumblr working. I got into this because I wanted to do a fun hack. I led up Twitter's resilience team for a few years, and I just got really burned out on it. And so this project came along. It's like, hey, you want to have some fun? I was like, you're damn right, I want to have some fun. And sure enough, reawoke my love of coding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't really stopped ever since.
It's good to see a combination of old and new, like collaborating each other's projects, and it was like dream the Atari caliber level Lowell & Bushnell's was not expecting to see that happening.
Oh, the whole thing with Nolan Bushnell recently?
No, the one with not recently, but the one with Nolan Bushnell started it years ago.
Yeah, I think when he started Atari, like nobody thought video games were going to be as huge as they became, especially with, I think, Atari themselves, like the 2600s. Like, they'd had so many failed products, like the Atari Video Music. They released the 2600, and they just ignite, like, a whole industry with passion for built video games. Fascinating stuff.
It sure is fascinating, man. And that was like... And this is where the more recent one, where the whole Me Too movement, they actually made GDC boot Nolan Bushnell off the awards, which is, it sucks. He should get an award. Nolan
Bushnell was a dominant figure in video gaming, and don't know, like, there are a lot of shades of gray going on, especially because of, like, his treatment of women back in the day.
And it was different standards, different era, right?
It was a very different era back then. And, I mean, I don't know, like, his impact on the industry is impossible to deny. not just in terms of Atari, but other stuff he did after Atari, like Chuck E. Cheese, you know, all of, like, the VC stuff he did back in the day. Like, you know, Nolan was and still is, like, somebody who really pretty much invented this industry as a thing. So, I certainly would agree that he deserves recognition for that.
Yeah. The whole him having parties with women, all the women in the video game industry went up and defend him. And they're saying he did nothing wrong. The Atari ecosystem was so nice and so awesome. Yeah, that's unfortunately in 2018, if anything in the industry that somebody trying to look up that somebody else is past and trying to make a big deal, yeah, all the sponsors run away. Oh, it's like this is a good ass game though. Phil Collins. Yeah, this is.
I've just been trolling Randy, like, eventually by sending him this particular piece of mail.
Oh, yeah, this is trolling in 1987.
That's as much trolling as you can really do in Habitat.
Before trolling was a
thing. I
thing.
sent you another Phil Collins.
You stop trolling me, man. Logging up my paper with junk mail.
Yeah, man.
Lol.
So I see an envelope. You have mail in your pocket.
Oh, Neohabitat project, man.
I click that. Now I get mail, and it turns it into a letter, so I can read it.
That's true.
So here's what I'm gonna do. He had to type all that stuff. I'm just gonna reply.
Uh-oh.
And he's like pissed me off, so I'm gonna.
Shut up, lols.
Yeah. Got your back.
Oh, damn, I got some mail on time.
Oh, it's a fun troll. This is a fun troll. You got. Uh-oh.
So we had in-world mail. We tried to put everything in here.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen so much stuff poured into the first MMO?
It would be impossible. It would be impossible to do it in 1987.
Yes, it is impossible. It was impossible.
Computers don't do...
You know what's funny? Is in fact it was impossible. It did in fact fail. I'd like to tell a story about Commodore 64, no two the same.
Oh.
So, if you look at our video, if you look at the Habitat video, what you see is something that's slightly different than the one that shipped. See this text line up here he's typing into? We originally had it down here.
Oh, really?
Where it made more sense because you were typing, you could read the context above and you're going to add to it. The idea is kind of flowed up. But it's up here, which is really awkward, actually, and hard for people to see. Like when you go to a bank and you say withdraw, people don't at first realize that it's a type in a denomination because it's way up here out of your field of view, whereas down here it would have been in your field of view for most interactions. We had to move it because on some Commodore 64s, switching from text to graphic backs to text on a single screen would crash the computer.
Yeah.
Their VIC chip, it's the chip that handles all the AI, how to do cool graphics. There were early versions that had a bug. But it was an early version. They fixed it in a later version. That's why some computers now, there's a whole story about how we discovered it. So literally, you take a computer out of a box, it may or may not have this bug. They fixed it, but they were such cheap asses. When they released a new version of the chip, you know what they did? They tossed it into the bin with the rest of the chips. So there were A version chips in with D version chips.
Imagine.
So, as late as the Commodore 128, which is kind of the last model of this, there are still A chips in them.
Imagine if Atari or any of imagine if Activision EA doing that.
Yeah.
It would be like the internet outrage.
I mean, what was fascinating about Commodore really separated them from other companies was how they had a semiconductor fab they could just like spin up chips whenever they wanted to, but you know, so many of those chips are just completely fucked.
Yeah.
That was actually the ending of the company because one of the
some of us remember the overflow chip problem with the Pentium. So.
Yeah, must.
The floating point bug.
And then there's like a bubble popped. There must be a bubble popped in the gaming industry. Well, actually, yeah. It's hard to believe that it's a 64K. It's, what was it? It's smaller than like megabits.
Yes, it's smaller than an icon. Moderating on a desktop in a modern computer. It's smaller than the rendering code for a single pixel shader in a modern game.
Yeah, that's true.
Just saying.
True.
Created an entire virtual world client and dynamic object model in less space than a single pixel shader. But that's not the most impressive thing I've ever heard of. The games on 2600s, those are amazing. 256 bytes of memory, of RAM, that's all you get, and 4K of ROM, and you have to do all the rendering, the scanline rendering.
That's pretty much a
And
lot.
you got to put a game in that somehow.
Yeah, people compare Atari to Nintendo. I say, well, yeah, I can agree. And the Commodore 64 was like they're like Sega. They're like Sega to Atari as Nintendo is to Sega and Sony, Microsoft with Xbox and PlayStation. I can hardly believe. I can hardly believe PCs are becoming more like what consoles should have been.
Yeah. It's the startup.
This is a startup for PC gamers, 1980s. Fun stuff.
We are going. So, Steve, when do you want to take your shift checking out the floor?
Probably a little bit of.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to go and check out what's going on in the other room.
All right, so I'm just going to check if Jerry's going to come. She answered my question if she's coming, so don't miss her.
Well,
Otherwise, I'm going to go check out the floor while I still have some legs left.
This was very fun, Steve.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, man. Come join us, neohabitat.org.
Yeah, I'll check it out.